Services Marketing, MKT 625. Lecture number 25.
Assalamu alaikum Khawateen Hazrat. This is Wasim Hassan, your instructor for the course Services Marketing MKT 625 at the Virtual University of Pakistan. I welcome you to lecture number 25 of the course. You will recall toward the end of the last lecture, I was talking about the importance of an accurate service design. Because of the fact that in many of the cases, service designs are flawed, they lead towards standards which do not really come up to the expectations of customers. And that is precisely what really plagues the gap number 2. In other words, gap number 2 emerges because of the reason that we do not really have standards which match customers' expectations. And why is it that we do not really have the right standards? It stems from the fact that generally we do not have the right design. And the reason we do not really have the right design stems from the fact that the people tend to oversimplify things. And they get into assumptions which I talked about in the previous lecture. And for your benefit, I would like to give you a recap, though very briefly, of those assumptions. They tend to think that people are working in an established kind of a manner, and it is difficult to change their habits, and therefore let them work the way they are. They think that they understand what customers want, and because of the experience and the time they've spent with the company in delivering the service, things would automatically fall in place. But that generally is not the case. The other reason this gap emerges, people do not really fully appreciate the characteristics of services. Because of the characteristics of intangibility and variability in particular, providers generally think it is quite very difficult to have stringent standards because variability is going to creep into the system in any case. And since it is a question of the variation in service to service, from customer to customer, there is probably no need to have very stringent standards because we have to deal with that variability in any case. That is not the right assumption, and nothing can be said in defense of that. This really results in a set of symptoms and disorder which becomes very challenging for service providers. Before I start talking about these symptoms and the challenges which emerge thereof, let me talk about what really is a service design. Let me tell you in very plain words that a service design is a set of processes which are put together in order to deliver the service. In the simplest possible words, this is the way that I would like to put that into a kind of definition. These processes are executed by people, and people are located at the physical evidence, meaning the service scape. So therefore, it really is a function of these three variables of the marketing mix which characterize services. In the absence of the well laid out and well defined and well structured processes, services emerge as something which are oversimplified, which are not complete, meaning they're incomplete, which are biased and carry subjective interpretation. Naturally, when there's a tendency on part of the providers to not lay down their processes in a well systematic way, they will tend to oversimplify the process with the assumption that everybody understands that. And let me tell you, if you are heading an organization or working for an organization which consists of just a handful of people, having a process which looks very simple and straightforward, even then you've got to undertake an exercise whereby you define all the points of interaction between employees and the customers, and between and among employees, so that you can pinpoint and define all the points that comprise the whole process. Because in the absence of that, the service design is going to be flawed. It is going to be oversimplified, and an oversimplified design leads towards the one which is not complete. Naturally, if it is oversimplified and does not define all the points of interaction, it has to be incomplete. And incompleteness leads toward a logical step, which is that of bias. And with that bias, you just cannot come up with an objective interpretation of the design which really is compatible with the expectations of your customers. So these are the four challenges which emerge because of the assumptions that I talked about. The assumptions which really plague the design of the service as something which is incomplete, as something which is biased, and they carry interpretation which are subjective and which is not very precise. Therefore, we have to come up with a service design which is very well designed and must carry a few characteristics which are universal in case of any service. A service design must be very objective and not subjective is the very first character of a good design. And objectivity versus subjectivity is something that I've talked about. It has to be very precise and not vague. Vagueness will come into the design if it is incomplete and if it is oversimplified. And if it is a very well-defined effort, then it will be very precise. The design has got to be fact-based, not opinion-based. If providers think that because of the experience they have logged over a lifetime, and they can come up with certain opinions which are second to none and are even better than what customers may think, they are mistaken. The design has got to be based on certain facts which you preferably should try to reveal with the help of marketing research. We have done a lot of hard work in trying to understand why marketing research is important, and I think facts which should become the basis of a good design be revealed with the help of one of those study methods. A good design must be methodological and not philosophical. Now, this is a statement that I've made, and what it really means is once you have defined the rationale, once you have gone through a rational process of thinking in terms of the philosophy behind the emergence of the particular service that you are trying to develop and dealing with, then that should be the end of that philosophy, and it should give way to certain methods which you must follow based on the facts that I've just talked about. And here, what really happens is, with the help of the qualitative marketing research that you have carried out to define one particular issue or a set of issues, it should be the end of the philosophical phase giving way to the methodological phase. And this is what is meant by these four hardcore characteristics which should form the basis of a well-designed and a successful service design. If you follow these characteristics, you're going to reap certain benefits. And you will see that after having gone through all these characteristics and after having incorporated these characteristics into your service design, that you will come up with the following benefits. One, you will realize that the strategies which you employed were supported by total human resource within the company, because everybody owned the service design which you came up with, and therefore there are no cross-functional conflicts, and all the associated strategies which should be there to support the service design are there. And as a result of that, the process of operations which you just kicked off during the launching stage was very effective. It was better than that of competitors, and it really has given a head start to the service which you have just designed. You will also see that the choice of segments of the market is absolutely accurate because the design was based on facts. It was not based on opinions. It was not just philosophical. It was based on certain methodology, and it was very objective, leaving out the elements of subjectivity. And therefore, your service product, you will see is going to have a competitive advantage with a certain level of technological sophistication. These are the benefits which you will see realizing after having gone through and after having incorporated the hardcore four basic characteristics of a good service design. Another thing which you must take into account is that you must involve your employees and customers when you come up with the service design. As a matter of fact, when I was talking about the benefits, one of those is that you have total support of the human resource, and the strategies which are employed as support strategies are just about the accurate ones. Well, this benefit is going to be realized only if you involve your employees. Employees are very close psychologically and physically to the customers, and therefore they really can pinpoint those organizational issues which relate expectations of customers, meaning those issues which are to be handled and managed as part of the service features and service delivery mechanism which really matter to your customers. By the same token, you also must involve your customers, those customers who are loyal to the company and those with whom you can talk about in terms of a qualitative research program. The input by these customers is going to be valuable, very highly valuable, to the point that you really can be sure about the design of the service. Now, with these characteristics, we have to proceed forward, and we have to put together all those stages which are involved in coming up with the right design. What are those stages? Let me talk about those one by one in a very systematic manner. The stages of the service design could be very strategic in nature, and their interpretation and their implication. The stages comprise of a few steps which are very similar with those that you employ in case of tangible goods. As you know, a lot of concepts have come into the field of services marketing from the field of goods marketing. So the concepts that we borrow from that particular field are applied here as well. Not blindly, because the differences that we see are in terms of the implementation of those concepts. So in other words, the concepts and techniques that we employ in services marketing are characterized by the different features that present themselves in the implementation stage. There are certain changes and adaptations which we always bring into the system, starting with the inclusion of the three the variables of the marketing mix in case of the services marketing. So therefore, anywhere and everywhere we talk about the concepts borrowed from other fields of marketing or management, they've got to be adapted to the characteristics of services. Just like tangible goods marketing, the whole process starts with a strategic vision which gets translated into a mission, and which in turn gets translated into the certain objectives. And then what we do is we get into a new service strategy development. And once we have developed that service strategy, we get down to the very important phase of choosing one of the operational positions that we have at our disposal to choose from. And you will recall I did talk about in one of my lectures three positions which service providers could have to themselves. One is that of cost efficiency, the other one is that of service quality, and the third one is of customization. This is something which probably I'm going to talk about in a little more detail in the next lecture, but the process of the service design takes into its fold choosing of one of the positions among the three that I've just talked about. And after having adopted one of the positions, they just get into the market and start operating. So this is the strategic process that we go through while we talk about these stages. Let me talk now in a little detail about the vision and the mission and the service strategy development. As you know, the vision relating any company is something that deals with the future of the company. Any company working in the business world has got to be very clear about its objectives, which are going to take the company from this point where the company sits today to that point where the company would like to reach 3 years down the road, or 5 years down the road, or maybe 10 years down the road. So in other words, it is all about the line of business or businesses the company would like to get into in order to get to the destination which it really has carved for itself. With the given line of business or businesses, the companies could get into so many different kinds of strategic frameworks, and those strategic frameworks basically are part of the mission of the company. And mission basically relates the present and not the future, meaning the activities at hand which are again very strategic in nature, and you follow those activities in order to fulfill certain strategic objectives. And therefore you've got to be concerned about the setup of the company, meaning the organizational structure. And it is because of that reason that mission statement in most of the cases deals with the present setup and activities and not the future. However, there are cases where companies like to talk about the future course also as part of the mission statement, and in that kind of a situation you do not really have the need to also have a separate vision statement which talks about the future, because the mission statement takes into account both the factors, meaning the future as well as the present. After we have established our mission, we get down to other areas of our strategy, which start with the new strategy development. And new strategy development for any service has got to be a function of the scope of service product or service product portfolio. You may like to come up with just one service, or you may like to come up with a handful of services which may be an extension or maybe extensions of the basic core product. The important point here is while we endeavor to come up with a new service strategy, we have to go back to the classification of services. Why classification of services? Because we have developed an organization, the present setup that I was just talking about a moment ago, which is geared toward achieving the objectives and goals of the company. The goals can be very qualitative in nature, and they also can be very financial in nature. Well, as a matter of fact, they have to be very strategic and financial at the same time. You talk about things like the growth in the market share, in capturing a certain segment of the marketplace, and then you translate all that into numbers, and that is where you start talking about the financials as to what exactly should be the market share and the level of profitability and the contribution margins and so on and so forth. So the nature of the organization and the nature of service has been developed in order to achieve the objectives which any organization might put together in order to get to the destination which has been defined as part of the vision of the company. Therefore, we have to look into the cross-functional relationships with a renewed vigor that really are helpful toward the design of the service. Until the time all involved in development of the design are convinced and their opinions and their impressions converge at one single point, we just cannot go ahead with the strategy development, because if we do not achieve that consensus, the strategy is going to work at cross purposes, and therefore involvement of all those who are part of the service is of extreme significance. And I would rub this point in again, that even if you happen to be a very small organization of just a handful of people and offering a very, what you may think to yourself, a small service with a small volume, even then you've got to be very critical of this particular factor. I can tell you with a lot of confidence that without properly designing the service and without properly taking into account the importance of the cross-functional relationships with a renewed vigor, you just cannot come up with the right design. It definitely will be incomplete, subjective, biased, leading to subjective interpretation, which will not come up to the expectations of your customers. And therefore, it is extremely important to take into confidence all those who are going to be involved. It is not only a question of taking everybody into confidence, it is a question of having everybody own that particular service design so that they cannot back out and say, well, I did not really opt for that. And when people start talking about those kind of factors, meaning pointing fingers at each other, it is always too late. It is not strategic. It looks like something which is chaotic, and that is something which the business must avoid. The fact is that a new service design takes place in view of certain organizational goals, which could be about the pricing, the revenues, the contribution margins, the profitability, and so on and so forth. And these are the goals which really help companies generate ideas about the pattern of growth. When it comes to the pattern of growth, we basically are dealing with two principal components. The one is services and the other is customers. The services could be divided into existing services and new services, and similarly, customers could also be further divided into existing customers and new customers. And when it comes to the pattern of growth, we have to follow one of the options that a combination of these two components offers us. It is very interesting to note that it offers us with a grid which is a function of 4 different strategic frameworks. Let me show you with the help of a graphic representation the grid I'm talking about, or the matrix which can really help us in understanding the pattern of growth or the strategic direction which a company should take in order to grow. As you can see from this matrix, we have customers right on top, and they are divided into existing customers and new customers. On the left-hand side of the matrix, we have existing services and new services, and these essentially are the offerings or the service products. Now, which strategy a company should follow could be one of the 4 presented here. The first one could be existing service to existing customers. And when it comes to following this kind of a strategy, what the companies generally do is build up share of the market. And how can they build share of the market? By keep on approaching the existing customers is with the help of certain strategies which prompt and motivate their existing customers to consume more. When existing customers consume more, they certainly add to the volumes and to the revenues, and the company has a way of growing by keeping it limited to the existing service that it is selling and the base of the customers it is approaching. Now, this is not a kind of strategy which companies keep following all the time. Companies follow different kinds of strategies from time to time, from situation to situation, and that is why we are going to talk about 4 different options. The next option could be companies offering existing service or services to new customers. Now, here the essence of the strategy is market development. As you can see from the matrix, how can you develop market when you approach new customers? Well, this basically takes us back to the outreach and distribution. We have to improve distribution in order to attract more customers. And you also can go back to the ServQual, the service quality questionnaire, in which you put as part of the information demographics relating all those respondents who were part of the marketing research program. And then you related those demographics with the way they think about your product and also about the competitive offerings. So what you really can do is, based on these facts, you can start approaching new segments. And in order to approach those new segments, you may have to undertake the effort of spreading your outreach, improving your distribution. And this is because of the precise reason that banks keep on adding their branches, and the mobile telephone companies keep on adding to their pool of franchises. The third strategy could be companies offering new service to existing customers. And this is a strategy which really underlines service development, meaning you have to come up with a new service. When you come up with a new service about which I've been talking about all along the lecture, it can be a service which is a whole new service product, or it can also be something which has been redesigned. Now, what is a redesign? Even if you make certain changes to your service by the way of adding certain different features of delivery, you can call that a redesigned service or a new service from that standpoint. Let me give you the example of the gas station which may like to go for self-service, which is very popular among consumers in the Western markets. It is a concept which has not yet caught on in our market, but we have to take a look at this from the standpoint that it may not be a far off possibility. Here, the service is redesigned for the simple reason that involvement of the customer is much higher when the customer serves himself or herself. Instead of just pulling up before the station and requesting for the fill up, what the customer does is get out of the car and handles everything in order to fill up the gas tank of his car. And this is an involvement which is very different from a full service, meaning where you are offered this service by one of the attendants, and therefore it is a redesign. Now just start thinking of the process if you were to lay that down on a piece of paper, only because you did not want to leave it to the oversimplification and incompleteness and biased interpretation. You will realize that there are quite a few steps that you have to take care of while you develop this new service or this redesigned service. I can give you a few more examples, but I'll rather leave it to your imagination. For the sake of your benefit, I may talk about a medical service which adds to its facility some diagnostic equipment for the benefit of its customers. Instead of having the customers go elsewhere for administration of certain tests, the medical facility of customers' choice is now fully equipped with all that equipment, thereby keeping customers from the trouble of going elsewhere. And this also is a new service or a service redesign. So you develop this service for your existing customers. That is the scenario which I'm talking about. I think it is very probable that existing customers are going to be attracted to this new service because existing customers are the loyal customers. They are the ones who are sticking with the company, and with the reputation of the company which is good, and the company has come up with a new service, existing customers are going to be attracted to the new service, thereby bringing more revenue and growth. The fourth scenario is that of diversification, and which really signifies new service and new customers. Now, this is an area which is new for the company and therefore presents challenges which are greater than the three scenarios that I've just talked about. What the companies can do is, based on the brand power, they can leverage their situation. And if they are selling services which follow and if they are selling services which have very loyal customers, the chances are the company will be in a position to attract new customers for that new service because they can leverage the situation with the help of those loyal customers. And the fact is that companies which are very well established with their existing services are the ones that may like to go into diversification as part of a growth pattern, because this essentially means that they have followed all other options from time to time, and now they really feel the need of diversifying their service portfolio, charting those territories which are new to them, but have the capability of weathering the storm that may come their way. And therefore, this is kind of a strategy which is not for everyone to follow, but it does really offer growth opportunities. The question here is which strategy to follow in order to grow. Before I can come up with the right answer as a very precise kind of a statement, let me take you to another slide which shows the relationships between all these four scenarios, and the relationships are to be understood in terms of these different scenarios complementing each other from time to time. And what we are trying to understand here is why is it that companies follow one certain strategy, and how come the other one, meaning another possible scenario, can come up to the help of the company by complementing what the company has been doing in the past. Let me show that to you with the help of another slide which is very interesting. And as you can see from this presentation, which basically is about the complementary effect of growth patterns, meaning the strategic scenarios as they help each other from one time to another. Now, this is not something which takes place simultaneously or concurrently. This is something which takes place from time to time, meaning if at this moment you have opted for one particular scenario, you may feel the need to opt for another in order to come up to the changing expectations of your customers. And that is why you have to respond to those situations, and you also get the opportunity through that response to grow. It's not only that you respond to their needs, you respond to their needs because you also want to grow. So take a look at these four scenarios as I presented to you earlier by way of a matrix. The existing products are shown by way of two blocks, and new products are shown by way of two blocks. If you take a look at the top left one, which is existing products and existing customers, it complements the one that is underneath, meaning existing products and new customers. Well, you can bring in new customers to start using your existing products by leveraging the position of your brand, meaning it is the brand power which really leads the new customers to come to your company and buy your service. It is the positive word of mouth. So what I'm saying is, if the strategy which is right on top was working at one particular point in time, the one which is underneath will also work when you feel the need to follow that strategy, and it will start working to your favor because the one preceding that also worked to your favor. It was because of the earlier strategy that you maintained and retained your customers, and those existing customers brought in new customers. And by the same token, you see, if you take a look on the right side, the top box which is new products and existing customers, you will again realize it is complemented by the same strategy which the company had followed as the first strategy, meaning existing products to existing customers. You still have existing customers, but here you are selling to them new products, and for the simple reason that they are buying your new products because they've been satisfied in the past. It is the satisfaction level which is motivating these existing customers to try new products by your company, which in their eyes is a good company. It is reliable, and it falls on all the dimensions of quality that we have learned so far. The company is adaptable, it is reliable, it is responsive, it is spontaneous, and so on and so forth. So you can see the complementary relationship between these strategies. And likewise, if you go further down, you will see new products and new customers. Well, this is the one I said is the most challenging because you have developed new products and you are trying to create an appeal for new customers and not for existing customers. Still, I would say that it will be complemented by your existing customers and those customers who at one time were new while they came to your existing products. If you take a look toward the left of this box, you will realize that these two complement each other. The new products introduced by your company will be tried by new customers if the new products are as good as your old or your existing products. It is because of the retention of the customers, and it is because of a continual effort on your part to satisfy your customers at any given point in time, that new customers, because of that reputation, will come to your company and start trying new products. And if they are satisfied with the consumption of your service products, they are going to mold their future behavior accordingly. Meaning they are going to become your loyal customers, and then you should start working for the strategy which is right on top left, because the product that they have started using now has become an existing product, and the new customers who came to buy that product have now become existing customers. So it is because of all these reasons that I've tried to develop this kind of a complementary relationship by way of this presentation to your benefit. And the point to note here is that different strategies will work at different times in light of the market needs. That is the statement which I wanted to make when I was talking about 4 different scenarios with the help of the earlier matrix that I showed you. So depending upon the market needs and your resource capability at that particular point in time, you are going to come up with the right strategy. If resources do not really offer you the luxury of getting into diversification, meaning introducing new products for new customers, you should not do it. And you should be content with whatever you are doing, meaning with the strategic direction that you are following. And therefore, the pattern of growth has got to be based on your resource capability and the needs of the marketplace. That is the summary of this particular phase I was talking about. Now, having talked about this, we also can say that the benefits of the marketing research should be availed of, because we find facts with the help of marketing research. Now, having said all that, I think it becomes easy for a company to decide which way to go, meaning which strategic scenario the company should follow. And the answer lies in being very clear about the needs of the market, the availability of resources, and the facts which the company has revealed with the help of marketing research. If we take a look at where we stand in comparison with competition, and we also are mindful of the resource limitations, and we know the needs of the market, I think it is quite very easy for us to decide which strategic direction to follow. Now, this is the statement which I wanted to make as a summarized kind of a statement of the understanding that we have developed. Now, I would like to take your attention to another phase of the planning, which is very important in terms of the service design. Let me point this out to you, that this phase of the planning checklist is not something which falls in line, and it is not something that makes the process that I've talked so far linear, meaning the overall business strategy development and then service strategy development and then planning checklist. No, it's not like that. Planning checklist basically relates the design of the service, and there is no way that we can start talking about the service strategy development if we do not have the design ready, or if we do not have the products that we are dealing with. So it is obvious that we have the products, meaning existing products, and the new products that we are developing are the ones which are based on our experiences and whatever we are doing in the marketplace. And therefore, this is a checklist which we should have to ourselves, just in order to make sure that the products that we are selling are up to the planning mark, and ensure that the design of the service is up to the expectations of our customers. And therefore, this can take place at any the point in time, at any phase of the planning process. It is just that we have to keep into account these certain important steps which ensure the rightness of our service design. The planning checklist consists of 7 different steps which are further lumped into 2 groups. The first group is known as the front-end planning, and the second one is known as implementation. Experts say that it is the front-end planning which is more important than implementation, because things that go wrong, they go wrong during the front-end planning process. Because implementation takes place of what you have already planned, and therefore if there is something wrong with planning, the implementation is also going to be erroneous. The 3 steps of the front-end planning are the idea generation, concept development and evaluation, and the business analysis. The 4 steps of the implementation stage are service development and testing, then market testing, then commercialization, and then post-introduction evaluation. So this is a process which is divided into front-end planning and implementation. And let us now talk about all these steps one by one, because they are the ones that really ensure that service design is up to the mark. And like I said earlier, probably this is a process which can take place at any point in time of the planning process, because this is something which has to be an inherent part of the services which exist for selling, and those services which you are planning to introduce, meaning new services. And from that point of view, I said this is not something which must fall as number 3 as part of the planning process. No, it is something which you can take care of maybe in the beginning as the part of the overall the business strategy development, because once you have accurately analyze the classification of services and are very clear about the nature of the organization and the service that you want to sell, naturally you will get down to all these points, making sure that your planning, meaning the front-end planning, is just about as accurate as customers want, and hence resulting in kind of implementation which is up to their expectations. So let us get down to the first point, which is idea generation. Idea generation is all about the starting with conceiving and coming up with a service product. You can do that with the help of plain idea solicitation. You can solicit ideas from your employees and your customers. Again, from the front-end employees who happen to be psychologically and physically close to your customers, and those customers who are loyal customers and really think about your company's products as their own. You also can get into lead market research and market scanning and so on and so forth. And do not forget that you also can get into critical incident studies. As a matter of fact, when you get into critical incidents, in order to find out what is it that really satisfied your customers or dissatisfied your customers, you certainly have an opportunity of either further improving your product or making certain corrections. So in other words, recovery strategies should also lead toward a certain idea generation, and on that basis you can conceive something for the betterment of the service and your company. What is important here is, as experts maintain, that there has to be a separate department or a section within every company responsible for this particular purpose, meaning any idea that is generated should go into an idea bank and be screened against the ones that are already available, and then the one that is picked should be the one based on facts generated from the marketplace and other methods like I talked about, the recovery strategies or incident studies and so on and so forth. The importance here is of a match between developing that idea and then matching that with the resource limitations or constraints of the company. Just like in the case of tangible goods, you come up with a product concept and present that to all concerned. You come up with a service the concept in services and present that to all who are concerned across the functional lines. However, there is one difficulty and a challenge in terms of the services. When it comes to tangibles, you can always present some pictorial. This is how the product is going to look like. And having defined all those dimensions by way of a pictorial, it becomes easy for people to understand how the concept looks like, meaning how the tangible good will look like. This is not the case in services because of the characteristic of intangibility. We certainly have a difficulty in trying to explain what the concept is. The basic essence of the concept is to explain the need it is going to fulfill and why people should come and buy that service product. That basically is the concept development all about. And while you talk about that, in the absence of the opportunity which you may have while you are dealing with tangible goods, you talk about all the points of interaction and all the process points which take place during the delivery of the service with all those people who are going to be responsible for that service. And people responsible for that service are all across the organization. So in other words, you come up with a strategic outline which talks about the major features of the service and all the process points which are to be put in there to deliver that service, with the help of which we say that customers is going to like this service, they will come buy it. So you talk about the rationale, talk about the features, and you talk about the target audience, and you talk about the reasons why people should come and buy it. And you talk about all that with the help of all those important points relating sales, marketing, operations, supply chain, and so on and so forth in a very strategic manner to explain the whole thing to all those who really matter. The importance here is of talking with each and everyone for the sake of ownership, so that nobody can say that I did not like the idea from day one and therefore I never subscribed to it. But we have to see to it that everyone within the organization subscribes to the idea so that we come up with a design which later comes up to the expectations of customers and hence carry standards which do not really cause a gap. That is what the whole thing is all about. After having talked about the service concept and its evaluation, which is undertaken by employees, and in particular the front-end employees and a bunch of chosen customers, we go ahead with the next step. And the next step is about business analysis. Business analysis suggests that we get into the sales projections and all the related financials in relation to the service. Now, we have the concept, and we should be able to project the sales of that particular service, thereby coming up with the level of revenues which the service will contribute towards the kitty of the organization. And we also have to be in a position to talk about margins and profitability, because it is at this stage that we talk about the pricing strategy and all the costs which are involved. The strategic implications in terms of the HR strategies could also taken into consideration in particular, because if we are developing a new service, it might dictate the importance of making some new hiring or dislocating people or training people, thereby making it essential to undertake an exercise of internal and interactive marketing, and so on and so forth. And even if it is a case of service redesign, which I gave you an example of by way of a company having a self-service dispensation of petrol at a station, you still need to get into the HR strategies because they are going to have their implication in terms of the staff. You may not need as much the staff or as many people as you may have when you are serving your customers in full. So HR strategies they play an important role when it comes to carrying out a business analysis. Once we have carried out the business analysis, we are done with the first 3 steps of the front end planning. And like I said, this front end has got to be loaded with as much realism and accurate facts as possible. If it is going to be marred by incompleteness or vagueness or subjectivity, then we're not going to come up with an implementation process that is going to lead the company towards satisfying its customers, and hence it will cause a gap, and the gap might be tremendous. The front end planning is important from that particular point of view. For the shortage of time, I would like to talk about the implementation phase in the next lecture and just give you a summary of what I've talked so far. I basically have talked about the importance of having an accurate service design, because an accurate service design will lead towards the right standards which are up to the expectations of our customers. And if we come up to their expectations, it automatically means that we are minimizing the gap that exists between their expectations and the standards that we have created. And we just cannot create the right standards in the absence of the rightmost service design. In order to come up with the rightmost service design, we have to go through a whole lot of strategic process which starts with analyzing the classification of services in the light of the business development strategy, and takes us into the service product strategy, and then into things which I shall be talking in the next lecture. One thing which I talked about in relation to the 2 important steps of the strategic process is the checklist. I barely started talking about it and am done with the one part of it, which is the front end planning. And this is important from the standpoint of making sure that the design of the service is absolutely right. And I would say it once again, this is not something which comes after the 2 steps which preceded this discussion, but rather is something that we have to keep in consideration while we are coming up with different kinds of strategies. So in other words, the moment we start conceiving our service or a change in our service, these are the steps that we have to keep in mind, so that the strategic process, which starts with the development of the overall business strategy, and then takes us into service strategy development, and then will take us into the choosing one of the operational positions, so that we can come up with the rightmost service blueprinting. What constitutes the strategic process? So much for today's lecture. Thank you very much for your attendance, and I look forward to talking with you in the next one. Allah Hafiz.